The Toronto Raptors played their fourth game of Summer League yesterday, and the more I watch this team play, the more I think Toronto has found their backup point guard heading into next season. So I'm going to break down this game as well as all the storylines surrounding the squad. Additionally, we have two more Kevin Durant reports to update on, and I think these give an insight into how this KD trade request will progress over the course of the offseason. And finally, we have an interesting stat coming from Stat Muse about a Toronto Raptors legend. So lots of stuff to dive into. Without further ado, let's dive straight into it. Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest, breaking down the latest Toronto Raptors news. And the first thing we're talking about is this Summer League game yesterday. And the big narrative, the big storyline I took from yesterday, there's a few we got to discuss, is I think the Raptors have found Fred VanVleet's backup. Now, this was an important part of this offseason. Obviously, our two main priorities were bringing back Chris Boucher, bringing back Thaddeus Young, making sure they're secured and locked into this Raptors future. So we got that done. But bolstering the bench was a huge piece to this offseason, and bringing in Otto Porter Jr. is going to be a huge help. However, we need someone at that backup point guard position that when Fred VanVleet's either tired in game or injured or something like that, we can trust to run the point guard position. Now, I think Scotty Barnes is capable of running it, but obviously he's an integral piece on the wings and sort of stuff of the squad. So, people were hoping. I still think Malachi Flynn could potentially take a leap, and I'll probably dive into him next videos. We're going to get a look at him in some Pro-Am action, I think, today. But the Raptors need to fill that spot. And obviously in free agency, it hasn't happened yet. I brought up a potential Patrick Beverley, Jordan Clarkson trades in the previous video. They could go to the route of the trade situation to fill that spot if Masai Ujiri thinks it's necessary. But the way Summer League is shaken out, the way it has played out, I think we may have found our option at the backup point guard. And looking at this box score, the first guy I want to point to is Jeff Doughton, who doesn't jump off the box score in this game by any means. Only 16 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals. Pretty ridiculous, for a guard coming in the stat line. Just a solid, steady stat line, fill in the box sheet. But man, the way this guy sort of I got the wrong buttons being pressed, but the way this guy just controls the game when he's out there. He's very patient, he can facilitate for others, and he gets to the rim at will. In this game, he had 7 of 8 from the free throw line, knocking down his free throws. I think that's the stat right there, right? Yeah, 7 of 8 from the free throw line, 87% from there, but the way he just drives to the rim, he's deceptively explosive, because usually you look at guys that are very fast in the NBA. You look at a De'Aaron Fox, a young John Wall, a young D Rose, or a young Russell Westbrook, right? Those types of guys, and they're fast because they're just explosive, going 110 miles per hour, the entire time, right? And that's definitely one way to be fast. But Doughton is a guy that plays fast in bursts, and I think that's honestly more effective in the sense that I'm not saying he's better than a young D Rose or something like that, but that style of play, just watching it, it's so smooth because you almost lull them to sleep and then just quickly explode. We've seen him, kind of dribble the ball up the court. People don't think he can sort of get to the rim, so they're, guarding spaces, they're watching the runners in the fast break, and then he sees a lane from three quarters of the court down and just flies down there in 3 dribbles and finishes at the rim. So that speed, mixed with an ability to just control the basketball, control the pace, facilitate for others, that's exactly what you want to see out of a point guard. And he can knock down the 3 as well. He's had some games in this Summer League where he's been splashing it down. Again, in this game, not the craziest of 3-point shooting nights, not the craziest of shooting nights in general from the field, 1 of 2, but honestly, when the shots aren't, because he had a couple games where he was just looking on fire for stretches, but the fact that he had a serious impact on this game, even though the Raptors couldn't get the 18-point victory to end up making it to the playoffs, I'm going to discuss that in this vid as well. But to get the win against the Miami Heat, who were hustling and fighting, especially at the second half of this one, I was very, very impressed. So shout out to Jeff Doughton, man. If we don't sign this guy, I'm going to be very disappointed. It'd be a blunder like giving up Ishmael Wainwright last season, who is having a really good season now. Summer League with the Phoenix Suns. Solid role player at times, spot player for the Suns last year. I thought he could have been very useful for us off the bench this year. But that's my take on Jeff Doughton. I think he could legitimately be a backup. Once he gets signed, I'll start really making the comparisons with Flynn. Obviously, Banton's likely going to be there, but whoever else we have on the squad, coming closer to this regular season. But we had a few other guys show out. I'll start off with the guys that, you know, played stronger, had stronger performances. And Armoni Brooks was a guy that, man, he has proven how streaky he can be. Obviously, last season, right, he's a guy that we knew could knock down the three, but never really had any big moments for the Raptors squad. But in Summer League, we're seeing why he had that, you know, a lot of Rockets fans thought he could be a solid player because he can get on fire for stretches. And in the first half of this one, Armoni Brooks was hitting some dumb shots, deep contested threes, driving to the rim, doing everything out there on the offensive end that you'd want to see sort of coming off the bench, everything the Raptors needed in terms of a bucket getter getting off, coming off the pine. And, you know, we said in the first game of this Summer League that he's going to make it tough on Masai Ujiri to make these decisions and figure out who's going to make the squad. Obviously, I've been pushing for Champagny Papi. His potential, his future with the team. But Armoni Brooks, he looked really good in that game one and then really struggled in the past two games shooting the ball from the field. But had the first half of, as mentioned, hitting wild shots, finishing at the rim. And then as the game went along, the second half just really didn't have it going. And you look at the box score, it's not the, you know, 17 points, most of it came in the first, then started forcing the issue, missed the shots that he was making the first half, had 4 turnovers, shot 7 of 16 from the field. And obviously those high volume scores, they're not necessarily the most consistent, not necessarily the most reliable guys, but in Summer League, you got to be playing at an elite level in order to make one of those roster spots, especially if you're in a dogfight with other really quality players. So Armoni Brooks, I'd like to see him just because of the unpredictability. You throw him in, maybe he can knock down 3 threes or something, develop a little bit, all that sort of stuff. I would love to have him on the roster, but if it's going to come at the expense of a Doughton, of a Champagny, I trust Masai Ujiri no matter what he does, but that's interesting. That would be an interesting situation. We'll see how preseason and training camp plays out. We got one more game of Summer League to also have a look at, but the guy that everyone had the most eyeballs on over the course of this Summer League, or at least coming into it, was Delano Banton. And a lot of people have expectations for him to potentially take that backup point guard spot. And tonight, again, a classic Delano Banton game. 18 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals. You look at that and you say, man, this guy's legit. This guy has the potential to be a proper, at least backup guard for this team coming into this season. We saw him dominate the G League last year. We saw spurts of greatness from Delano. However, the turnovers, the rushed play, I think Delano Banton, I don't know if the point guard skills are just there just yet, because he's a great passer, as I've mentioned on a lot of videos, anytime I ever break down Delano Banton. However, his ability to just dribble tightly when defenders are there, play at a fast pace, and just be under control, it's not where I'd want it to be right now after a year of development for Delano following last season, where I was hoping this year he'd come in a little bit, playing like down. We know Delano's fast, we know he can explode and all that sort of stuff, but play fast, but under control. And the handle is not really at the level of his speed, of his body. If you're a bit taller, it's tougher to have that tighter handle because guards can sort of get up underneath you and pick the ball loose. And I saw a bunch of people pointing out in comment sections of the YouTube highlights, watched that previously after catching this game last night, but people were mentioning how the left hand, just Delano's getting picked off left, right, and center. And the 6 turnovers he had in this game are pretty solid indication that he needs to get better at sort of the facilitating, play under his pace, and that means not forcing passes and not just mishandling the ball. So I think Delano Banton clearly has the highest potential out of anyone on this squad, with the exception of Koloko, who is still pretty raw, but I'm going to talk about Koloko. But Delano Banton has that potential there, but it's all got to sort of come together. And he mentioned last year about, or last offseason, he probably spent most of the year in the G League, and that's what ended up being the case following the first 2 months. And I don't know, it's going to be interesting to see how everything sort of plays out with Delano over the next couple seasons, assuming he's staying with the Raptors. So that's Delano Banton there. They're our up-and-coming point guard, but not everyone had the most, I'll stick with the positives. Karutz had a solid game, 13 points. He can finish at the rim. Seems like a solid defender. But once again, let's, I shall save all that for the segments. We're 10 minutes into this video. I don't want to be going too long on this. So let's go into the segments. I'll leave the negatives for after. And tonight, spicy P lay of the day. show some love to Christian Koloko, getting some blocks in this game, swatting some stuff underneath the rim. And one thing I really tried to keep a focus on in this game was how Koloko's defense positionally looked solid, and or I tried to see if it was solid, because the blocks aren't always the best indication of how well a defender sort of defends out there in the backside of the paint, but he's pretty stout, just standing there with his arms high, the Roy Hibbert-esque verticality, but obviously much more athletic, jumping for stuff. Obviously, he bites on a couple of fakes that just come with experience and all that, but defensively, I think the sky's the limit for Christian Koloko. Obviously, the touch will come. We're seeing him work on his jump shot, but I'm encouraged by Koloko blocking some shots in this game and hustling and playing some solid defense. But not all plays the spicy play of the day, and some just make you say, oh, geez. And I'll leave the golden kazoo to another players, but I'm going to keep bringing it up. Ryan Hawkins, in 8-10 minutes of action, has been electrifying from threes and knocking down shots and all that, but hasn't been given an opportunity on this Raptors Summer League squad. And tonight, you can look at the box score, DNP, 0 minutes for Ryan Hawkins. I'm like, the Raptors need shooting. They need a guy that can knock it down, and we're not even playing him? We're not even giving him a shot? Like, what's happening? Now the Raptors are sort of out of the playoff mix, going up against the Bucks this Sunday. If we don't give Ryan Hawkins at least 20 minutes, I am going to be screaming OGs at my TV. But the final thing we're talking about, the final thing we're discussing, is the Paul Pierce Golden Kazoo Award. And it's a couple of just disappointments. A couple of underwhelming performances in this game. And the first guy it's going to is the guy with more expectations, DJ Wilson. I praised him significantly in the previous outing, but tonight 4 points, 4 fouls, only 3 rebounds, 2 of 8 from the field, missed his threes. And this was this is an important game, man. This is the Raptors trying to make their push. They had a 23-point lead at one point against the Heat, but, we needed all hands on deck, and TJ Wilson couldn't really give that final punch to step on the Heat's neck and make this a 30-piece blowout, but Wilson just couldn't get his game going, and the fact that he's fighting for those roster spots, and he played so well in the regular season last year, I don't know, the up and down play for the most veteran player on this Raptor squad, it's disappointing, honestly. It's disappointing. A little kazoo going out there to DJ Wilson. I think he's still good. I think people are trashing on him a little bit too much, but you're getting kazooed if you're going to continue to play performances like this. And I think this might be this Sunday might be the last sighting we get of David Johnson, because he's having 0 impact out there. Had 4 rebounds in this game, 0 points, 0 of 4 from the field, 0 of 2 from the 3-point line. And he was looking good. He's looking good with his being in shape and all that sort of stuff, working on his body, but man, it's unfortunate. So I feel like he got robbed with injuries and didn't have a big opportunity, didn't play that well when he was down in the G League, but he's a guy that Bobby Webster said was a lottery pick at one point for last season, then got hit with COVID and then had to sit out. So it's sad that the potential didn't really pan out, but I don't think he has any shot at making the Toronto Raptors roster this year. So unfortunate stuff. Seems like a cool guy on IG and all that, but let me know what you guys think of this Summer League game. 13 minutes into it, and we haven't even discussed the old reports, the old thing that everyone has been interested in the last little while. It's KD rumors, and the first one's more of a rumor. It's a Nets insider drumming up some rumors, and this feeds into the second report. Sort of speed through this one here. I'll bring it up on the screen, and this is coming from a Nets beat reporter, essentially saying now Toronto is still in play. I have heard a few days ago that there was a deal involving 4 first picks, maybe Siakam and Anunoby. Scotty Barnes is not going to be involved. So at least Nets reporters have it through their brains now. Scotty will not be available, but Siakam and Anunoby and 4 firsts. It's a big NO from me. That's a big no from me if the Raptors are supposed to deal that, but I get the Nets beat reporters, and this is where it's sort of, I said it in the intro, I think this is where the trade negotiations, the posturing is going to happen over the next month, right? There's a negotiation battle going on between the Nets and the Raptors. The Raptors don't like to leak anything to the media, but one strategy front office used to, change the narrative around players to, because if a fan base is calling for a guy, they really want him, right? They want something to happen. Then, if trade offers are continuing to be swirling around, there's more pressure on the general manager to make a deal done. So the Nets are going to keep pushing ideas that are a little bit too expensive for Masai Ujiri and the Raptors right now. Push it to their beat reporters and try to see if that's a negotiation tactic that works. And whether it's to get the Raptors to up their offer or other teams to think that's what the Raptors are offering, right? That's all the plays that are going to be happening now. So I think we're going to see a lot of these rumors come out over the next few weeks as essentially what Brian Windhorst came out and said, that the trade talks are slowing down for Kevin Durant now at this point. So this is coming from Brian Windhorst of ESPN, essentially breaking down. He's coming out. I'll give the direct quote here. Executives are now going on vacation. At this point, the Nets' preferred situation is for Kevin Durant to stay with them, and there's no trade they've got that they like. Now, this might be disheartening to some Raptors fans that are looking forward to potentially acquiring KD. However, I don't see it that way. The Nets have not gotten any offers that make sense for them. They don't see any deals that are blowing them away. No team is really actively trying to give the Brooklyn Nets the ridiculous asking price for a 34-year-old injury-prone guy that might be a top 15 player of all time. Leave that second half out of it. We're trying to negotiate here as the Raptors posturing here. But I think this is a positive because, as mentioned in previous videos, I don't see a world where Joe Tsai specifically keeps these disgruntled stars on the roster. I think Kyrie Irving will probably be a domino that's first fallen. I've already talked about the Ayton domino. That didn't lead to anything too crazy. But I think Kyrie Irving will likely get moved. There's a bunch of reports coming out from the Nets side of things, essentially saying Joe Tsai doesn't want to see that guy ever enter a Nets facility ever again. So I think it's unlikely, certainly, that Kyrie's back. And once Kyrie's gone, I don't see a world where Kevin Durant, after making a trade request, after already, the relationship tarnishing with ownership, I don't see a world where he's staying. So give it time. Let things play out. Let these offers marinate. Raptors don't have to rush into anything to make a deal happen. These trade requests usually take a lot of time to sort themselves out. And I think we're going to see a lot of this, posturing by beat reporters, especially from the Nets sides, bringing in different teams. And we'll see how it all plays out. But I think we're going to get a little slow point here in terms of big reports from the Wojs, the Shams, the Brian Windhorst. So that's probably the direction for the Kevin Durant trade request this summer. And the final thing we're discussing, the final thing we're talking about here is there's a Raptors legend had a dominant stat. Might be a little bit of hyperbole, but it's pretty interesting here. Obviously, some people's following Serge Ibaka signing with the Clippers. I know a lot of Raptors fans were disappointed in him for doing that, but he's still a legend. He's still one of the GOATs of the Raptors, one of our best big men of all time. And I saw this stat flying around by StatMuse today, trying to illustrate the strength of LeBron. But playoff leaders since 2010. So in the past, 12 years, obviously LeBron's top points, rebounds, assists, steals, wins. But Serge Ibaka, Shad Blocka, not in my housey Blocka, right? Leading the way in blocks, just total blocks since 2010 for the playoffs. Obviously had those deep playoff runs with OKC, deep playoff runs with us, weird stint with the Magic, and then didn't really play much after he left our squad. But it's nice to see Serge Ibaka, because in the second half of his career, especially with the Raptors, even though he was obviously a great defender, more so known for his ability to floor space, finish around the rim, more of a polished offensive player, paired alongside the defense. But if we look back to Serge with OKC, that guy was just one of the best defenders in the NBA by far, just blocking shots left, right, and center, hustling and all that. It's kind of crazy that since 2010, given the fact that he played power forward most of that time too, wasn't a true center till really Nick Nurse came to the Toronto Raptors, only played 2 seasons at center for us, right? Pretty cool stat. But that's enough of me rambling. You guys are best to make this far. Check out the Instagram, the TikTok, the Twitter, all that cool stuff. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.